Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? I hope you're doing well. I'm definitely feeling a lot better. If you didn't get a chance to go over there to the blog, head on over there. I posted some pictures and videos. Well, you can see the videos here on the YouTube channel. But if you want to see some pictures, head on over there to the blog. I did a post last night of the lake that's close by. I decided to run over there, do some water healing, and that felt really, really good. I am so happy that I did that. It reminded me of La Sagatuck. I know I mentioned it before, over there in Michigan. That's where I pretty much spent my first years, and it did. That whole scenery. Sagatuck sits on the Kalamazoo River, okay? Excuse me. And it's like you had Sagatuck on one side, and then on the other side you have Douglas. And basically they were brought together to do the Sagatuck-Douglas. It was Sagatuck-Douglas Township, but then they were brought together and were classified as a city. And they did that. I remember when that happened. It happened back in the 80s, early 80s, to try and help bring more funding into the area because more federal funding. They're just looking for any sort of resources that they could get their hands on to try and help with funding, especially when it came to the school system, because unfortunately it was just a summer resort, basically, and unfortunately, well, still had kids there, and there was never enough money to be able to keep the schools open for the allotted amount of time that they need to be kept open. So we were always closing early. So anyway, yeah, it was pretty bad. To the point where even my parents had admitted to me a little bit later, after we had moved several years later, that as I got closer to high school or entering high school, they were going to seriously consider looking at having me go to a Catholic school over in neighboring Holland, because things were just so bad there. Well, we had basically the school, there was two schools. The elementary school was in Douglas, and it was home for grades K through 6, and then the high school was over in Sagatuck, and that was for grades 7 through 12. There was no middle school, no middle school, no junior high school. It was just K through 6 and then 7 through 12. Yeah, that was it. So both are still there. The area's doing better, I'm going to say, since how the schools are still open. And the cost of homes have gone up dramatically. So, yeah, it was an experience. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I used to love being able to go down to the park and or at least the waterfront area, and be able to look across, and you could see all the little homes that were positioned there on the Douglas side, and that's what Golden Lake reminded me of, was that. It was just so beautiful, and I miss that. I really do. And I was thinking about it last night while I was sitting there watching the sunset. It's like, I couldn't help but wonder if, I hated the fact that we moved. I hated the fact that we gave up that house. It was such a nice little house, It was a Victorian cottage, basically. 2-story. built back in the late 1870s. And I loved that house. Absolutely loved it. I loved living there and everything. Excuse me. It's just a little tickle. It's not my chest. It's just a little tickle in there. I will admit, it did want to trigger my chest a little bit. Okay. I'm alright. But anyway, yeah. I hated moving. When we moved down south, and I understood it even at the time, unfortunately, my father had difficulties getting work. He was laid off most of the time, and my mom, she was tired, She was busting her ass over there at Howard Miller, the clock company there in Kazoo, and she got tired of it, It was a 2-hour drive for her one way. And then in winter with the ice and snow, making things worse, Excuse me. I know, a little bit froggy in my throat. Maybe that froggy I heard over there at the lake jumped into my throat. But yeah, she actually had walked away. We had the garage that we had. It was a 2-stall garage. It was detached, and it sat in the back of the property. It was a 2-stall garage, and then there was like a little work area or whatever, and my my parents converted that over to a little store. Did very well, especially during the summer months, but winter came around and things got tough. And my mom just got tired of basically being the breadwinner, She was the one who was busting her ass, and my father, he was just content laying around on unemployment all the time, to tell you the truth. He was a lazy fucker. Always was. And, but anyway, that's okay. I don't have to worry about his sorry ass anymore. But, yeah, I really hated the fact that we wound up giving up that house, or they wound up giving up that house. They wound up selling it for, I believe, $20,000, something like that. That was back in the mid-'80s. And we moved down to North Carolina, where a couple of my aunts and uncles were living, and they were like, oh yeah, there's plenty of work down here, and this and that, especially for Tom, it's so on and so forth. Yeah, he got work. He was working. He got laid off at one, and he wound up at another, got laid off there, and things were dried up. And we've spent a couple of years, it was in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I loved it there too. It was beautiful. Loved Wrightsville Beach. We lived basically on the edge of Wrightsville Beach, on the other side of the drawbridge. Just on the other side. Actually, right there at the drawbridge. Heard it go off every hour. I'll never forget it. It's still there. It's still in operation, including the restaurant that was right there. It was called the Bridge Tender. Good restaurant. That was my first experience with what I, as a 10, 11-year-old, considered to be high-end, to the point where when it came to desserts, they actually wheeled them out. Yeah, they wheeled them out to you so you could look at them and decide which one. I thought that was the weirdest thing I ever seen in my life. Well, I was such a tomboy anyway. Oh my gosh, was I a tomboy. Well, in many ways I still am. Look what I do for a living. Yeah, I've always been a tough old broad. But anyway, but here I am. I'm sitting there. I don't remember if I had piggy tails or not or anything, but I was sitting there and it's like, I want to, we're waiting for, I don't know what we're doing or anything. I don't even know why we're there. If it was my parents' anniversary or did we just decide to do it or whatever. I have no idea. But then all of a sudden, they wheeled out all the desserts for us to pick and choose. I thought that was the weirdest thing I had ever seen in my life. I'm like, I even asked my mom, I'm like, why do they do that? Oh, this is what they do in higher end restaurants. Oh, okay. I don't know. So funny, I know. Of course, now I know better. Now, higher end restaurants, you go up to the... I'm kidding. I was thinking something along the lines of like Marie Callender's or whatever, where they have all the desserts and the displays, cabinets, or the refrigerated displayed things up there by the cash register. Yeah, that's high end. I'm kidding. Oh, I know a lot better. I've eaten at much higher end restaurants since then. So, oh my goodness, I'm just in that case. But no, I was sitting there and I was thinking, what my life would have been like if we would have stayed there and never moved versus how my life has been. And I would have been, of course, you could sit there and of course your life would have been much, much different and everything, but I was picturing it and everything. And to tell you the truth, it's because of my experiences with the places that I lived. Well, for one thing, I never would have known Angie and the wonderful person that she is. I never would have known her family. I never would have known these people unless it was destined to happen and we would have met somehow. I seriously doubt if I would have left the Catholic faith. I probably still would be a practicing Catholic. I probably would have married my elementary school sweetheart. Question is, would I have been miserable? I don't know. Ever since I was a kid, mentioning being a tomboy, when I got back home, I was showing Angie the pictures that I took over there at Golden Lake in the video, and telling her how much it reminded me of Saugatuck, and I pulled up Google Maps, typed in the address, and was showing her the house and telling her, okay, this is how the house actually used to look, showing her which one was my bedroom, telling her about the driveway because it's been paved over now. It's now just it's always been a single car sort of driveway or whatever, but back in those days it wasn't paved over. Back then it was a dirt driveway, double runner, and when it would rain, the next door neighbor's kids and we used to take our bikes and just plow through the flooding, and we would come back into the house just covered in mud. And not just that, but I remembered. The property has changed quite a bit. For one thing, the trees that lined the street are all gone, for the most part. Probably because of us kids, we were always being yelled at. We would stand there and we would pick all the bark off the trees, and we were always being yelled at, don't pick up the bark off the trees, they need those, you're going to kill them. Oh, we probably would end up killing the trees. I had a thing for picking things off, because even the siding, for whatever reason, the old lady, instead of retaining the clapboard on the sides of the building or the house, for whatever reason, at some point, she used roofing shingles on the sides. And, you know, that sandy stuff or whatever. I remember as a kid, I used to stand there and pick it off. Oh. But anyway, yeah, I was doing some reminiscing last night, and I remembered that there was more trees in the back, and I was remembering with where the swing set was, I could use that to climb on top of the fence. Yeah, did I mention I was a tomboy, by the way? Yeah. I'd use that to climb on top of the fence, or even just climb on top of the fence that our neighbor, basically Adam and Amber's father, had built, going against the Historical Society's guidelines, restrictions anyway. Eventually they made him tear it down. But anywho, and there was a tree there. And I remember as a kid, I had a leftover can of Pringles. You know, no, not the chips left, but I was using it as a toy. Okay, and what I did is I took my jump rope and tied it, a knot around it, and then tied it around my waist and filled it with things, pretending that I was James Bond. Did I mention I was a tomboy? And even at school, when I was in school, elementary school, it was constant notes being sent home. Please talk to Valerie about not beating up the boys. Well, they kept bugging us, and the recess monitors weren't doing anything about it. So us girls would go and beat the shit out of them. They're not going to leave us alone. Fuck it. We're going to beat the shit out of them. I know. Not much has changed, has it? And I'll say that these old bones have gotten to be a bit tired. I'll be the first to admit it. It was a tough little thing. But yeah, I'll admit I've gotten to be tired over the years. And I will admit that I have gotten to be a little bit more demure, diminutive, whatever, and it's like, okay, yeah, you know, the boys should ask us out and all this sort of stuff. I was taught differently as I got older, and it's like, okay, I'll let them ask me out, but then they don't. They'll have like a big crush on me or whatever, but then they don't ask me out, or it'd be the wrong boys ask me out. It's like, no, I'm not interested. Whatever. But no, I was thinking about all that last night, and it's like, if I didn't leave with the direction that I was basically being herded, guided, or whatever, I think I probably would have been bored. I probably would be, I don't know, I might have been settled, I might have been satisfied, I don't know. I may have wound up getting married, having kids. But I know that there would have been that curious wonder. I wouldn't have had... I've had a very adventurous life. I'll be the first to admit it. I've always said it. And yeah, when I graduated from high school, gosh, I had the I wanted adventure. I didn't want to, not adventurous and, oh, going out exploring the world or whatever. I wanted to live the life of danger, putting my life at risk. And I'm not talking about, things like jumping out of airplanes or whatever. To me, that's child's play. I'm talking about walking the criminal line. We'll put it that way. And I've done that quite a bit. Not that with me being involved in criminal activities, I don't know, like drug trade or some shit like that, or even just stealing a little candy bar from the drugstore or something like that. I'm not talking about shit like that. I'm talking about being on the right side and fighting against it. And without actually going into things that I was involved in. And then, of course, with the driving, still being in the mix of that element and everything with all of the hookers and pimps, the drug dealers, and so forth. And in some ways, still putting myself in danger with going into dangerous, not so, I don't want to say dangerous, but not so safe neighborhoods, pick up orders, drop off orders. Not really walking up to strange houses that are completely pitch black and not knowing what the hell's going to be waiting for me, things like that. Can be kind of scary. Turn your lights on, people. Damn. Always having to be one to be walking those sorts of lines and everything. I wouldn't have had any of those experiences. And I wouldn't have had any of the experiences that I have had. And I know I would appreciate the life I had. Because I was pretty settled with living there. Pretty happy. But then again, I was a kid. And once those teenage juices started kicking in, that's the big question that would have happened. Would I have been happy? And I don't know. It's hard to say, of course. Nobody knows. But I will say that because of the experiences I've had and so forth, basically coming back to it, I'm appreciating it even more so, at least differently than I think I would have if I would have stayed and not had the life that I did have. So, yeah, there was a lot of healing that has happened through these retrogrades, a lot of realizations. Oh, basically, even my Wheel of the Year reading, Three of Swords, Nine of Pentacles, basically getting to the heart of the matter, and then building that confidence. So yeah, I'm definitely appreciating a lot of things, a lot more, doing a lot of healing work, and now coming back, appreciating things a lot more. I know where I'm going now. And I'm just, I'm not entirely too sure, of course, which direction exactly I'm going. As far as a location is concerned, I don't know where I'm going in, as far as that is concerned. But as far as a direction in my life is concerned, I know where that's going now. I've made my decision on that. Even with saying, oh, I made my decisions about, things with other things, like the life coach and so on and so forth. That was all driving forces to what I really wanted to do. They were going to be supplemental incomes, which I could still do. I would have no problems doing it. But it's all coming together now. With things that I have been thinking about and so forth, with what I want to do. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I just need to research it a little bit more and how it looks, basically. But it's really what I want to do. So, and like I said, I could still do the other things as well. It would be a good idea, actually. But my main driving, excuse me, my main driving force now is to go down this path. And yeah, I don't mind pursuing the other things as well. I was going to do those first to help build myself up to that and everything, but no. I found that it's not really, those things aren't really as much of a passion as what I thought they were. And that's been part of my dreams that I've been having, especially over the last week. It's been weird. Yeah, there's been quite a bit of symbolism with them. But the biggest continuity that's been through all of them, I don't know how else to put it, but the colorization of them. You know how you'll either dream in black and white or color, I kind of do a little bit of both, depending on what's going on. Oh, excuse me. But usually when you're dreaming in black and white, it's like the old TVs where you had the 50 Shades of Grey. Only in this case, with these dreams that I've been having, they've been 50 Shades of Orange. All that fire, that passion, that sacral chakra basically being fired up. And I did dream last night, but I dreamt in color. So I know I'm on the right path. And I've been getting that signal also with that angel number. 222. 2222 has been really hitting me hard. 2244 also. So I'm interpreting those 2222 being on the right path, magnified by the extra 2, and then 2244, 22 basically being architect, the magic, or excuse me, not magic, shoot. One of the main numbers, basically. I can't think of what the actual term is slipping my brain right now. To me, though, it interpreted to you're on the right path and getting stability. Because 444 is to let you know that you're being protected, basically, and getting stable and grounded. So that's kind of the way that I'm interpreting it, even though the number 22 is it's 11, 22, and then 33. Are those, what are they called? Master, are the main master numbers. 11 being about the visionary, 22 being about the architect. So that makes a lot of sense. And then 44, I think, I'd have to look it up, but I think 44, again, going back to that, basically being stable, grounded. So It makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense with what I've been going through. I don't know if it would be here I'd be staying to do it. Tell you the truth, I want to explore New England. I've always wanted to go to New England. I've never been, even though I lived so close to it at one point. But that's where I want to go and check things out. But in the meantime, my main focus right now is to be rebuilding myself financially, continue with my healing, building my confidence and so forth, and rebuilding that credit score, because I know I'm going to need that big time. So, yeah, that's my main focus. And of course, keeping my health going and so forth. And kind of just be switching gears here a little bit. Speaking of health, I've been seeing these advertisements for a new CGM, continuous glucose monitoring system, that is quite interesting. And it's actually being backed by insurance companies. They're paying for it, including Medicaid, which I found to be quite interesting because of the hurdles I had to go through to get Medicaid to approve this one. This new one, it's just this little bitty strip, real little strip, okay? Gets inserted up underneath the skin by a doctor. Gets covered by something that basically it's the actual monitor itself, and basically what you tap your phone to. That's the only downside that I have found. I don't know if they have created a separate monitor or not. I have to do some more research on that. But I can always talk to my doctor, my endocrinologist, about it. Because, I buy cheap phones, and they don't have, like the Google, Apple Pay technology in it, where basically the tap and pay thing. And I don't even, with my phone carrier, I use a really cheap phone carrier. Yeah, they're a subsidiary of Verizon, but I don't know if they do any, I haven't found any phones. And they're kind of on the expensive side anyway, and I hate buying expensive phones. It's like they only last a couple of years anyway. You have to swap them out. And that's about as long as what I'm using these cheap phones. So $50, $300 plus. Yeah, once every 2 years. I'm good with the $50 phones. Especially as much as what I abuse them. I don't care what sort of cases they have, what sort of protective films they may have, or this or that. It's like, I'm going to find a way to break it. I know me. I'll wind up dropping it on the ground. I actually had this happen once with a phone. I dropped it on the ground. It wound up falling up underneath the car. In order for me to get it out, I had to run the phone over. I'm not kidding. I know, how in the world does that happen? Where I was parked where it was, and it was just, yeah. So, that's basically all it boiled down to. It was just like, fuck. Didn't have much choice. I had to run the phone over. Oh well, phone survived. Surprisingly, back when they used to make good phones. Before we had all this technology, this was just one of those old Nokias or whatever, So anyway, yeah, like I said, I know me. Anyway, with that new CGM, it's quite promising. I like the idea. And the nice thing about it, you only swap it out once a year. No more of the 2 year, or excuse me, 2 week stuff, which I am going to have to swap mine out here soon. So, yeah. It's something I can talk to my doctor about, though. Once a year. It sounds very promising. And basically, the thing that goes on your arm, it just attaches to the arm and it connects up remotely. It isn't like with these sensors where basically the sensor itself is like a needle. It is basically a needle that gets plunged into your arm. This is something where you just gets plunged in by the doctor, and it has to be done by the doctor. And then you just swap out the cover. You can swap it out daily, often as you want. Even if one of the things that they have in the commercial, which it's like, yeah, I've had this happen. You bump into a wall or something and rips it off, you got to replace it. You can't reinsert it. Yeah, and it happens. You got to be so careful. And they made these covers, and unfortunately they itch, they peel off, this and that. No matter what you do, it don't matter. They're just terrible. So, yeah, you just have to learn how to be careful. And they've made different things, like armbands and so on and so forth. It don't matter. The minute you bump into it, the damn thing, it's coming off. So, yeah. But yeah. I'd be curious about it. Find out if there's some sort of reader or whatever. But I got to get on health insurance in order for me to even be able to go back to the doctor. So I need to work on that. And in the meantime, I got to get myself back to work. At least I feel a lot better. Yeah, like I said, there's been a lot of cleansing, a lot of healing that's been going on. And it's been good healing, really good healing. So, but anywho, yeah, I'm and I'm going to get myself the one calendar, the one happy calendar that I seen there at Michael's the other day. And I want to get myself a notebook from the Happy Planner. There's one that I had seen up on line, up on their website that I really liked. I want to see about getting that. And I want to start moving in this direction. And I realize I don't have to have that stuff, but no, I really enjoyed it. And that's the whole point with things. I want to start doing things again that I enjoyed. But I have a game plan, and I want to start writing this stuff down. And basically start more kind of doing my own marketing plan. So, business plan. That's the word I was trying to think of. So, I got some work to do, but that's okay, And, of course, I have to get the money together to take care of the car payment this week. So, yeah. Yeah. And this has been a good weekend. Angie and I did a lot of talking, and she's like, don't worry about rushing to get out of here. I know that I know, she knows what I'm going through. She went through the same exact thing 20 years ago. She wound up basically having a meltdown, and wound up, her parents were back here where she was born, where her mom was born and raised, and so forth as well. And so, yeah, she wound up coming back here. She was in Virginia at the time, and hated leaving, loved it where she was at, just like me. came here and wound up being the best decision she ever made. She met her. She initially, when she came back, she was working temp work, doing temp work as a nurse, and wound up getting a job, permanent job, and she's, of course, now where she's at now, and wound up meeting her husband, who's a wonderful man. And I love him to pieces. I think of him as an irritating older brother. Probably the eldest brother that I ever had. I was an only child, by the way. So I kind of I've made up my family, especially since I never had really any cousins or anything that I could have any sort of a relationship with. I have cousins and everything, but there was always stuff, jealousy, so on and so forth. I was never able to have any sort of relationships with really any family. So it's a family situation makes me very uncomfortable, because I see family as backstabbing, people you can't trust. So this has been enlightening, healing for me in that respect as well. So anyway, yeah, this has been a very good move, even though there's a lot that I miss out there. But it was interesting though, because I was looking at this one account that I follow, where they advertise like farmhouses or what have you. And there was one that a post that they had done for Utah. It's only 5 acres, but with looking at the scenery, it was just like, it's like when you go back to an old girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever, they come back around and you've changed, and after the breakup and so forth, and you're looking and you're just kind of like, yeah, you're not so great looking after them. Kind of like that, a little bit. So, yeah, I got Angie, she went to the farmer's market yesterday. I just didn't want to go, plain flat out. And I'm glad I didn't go. Of course, I made my pasties. But, I got the subtle messages. And she bought me the 3 middle bracelets there. Aventurine. I think the one, the orangey one there, I believe that's peach, shit, I can't think what it's called now. And I think the middle one is it's either pink jade or rose quartz. I'm not entirely too sure. I'm kind of leaning towards pink jade, because I do wear rose quartz. I think the one here on the very, very end, I believe that is probably just glass. But I wear it anyway because of the color vibration. But I do wear, I have it here somewhere. There. Along with my crystal, my clear quartz. I keep, this clear quartz is the highest vibration, of course. But I have a couple of rose quartz there. So, and I have a rose quartz ring too, which unfortunately I can't wear because they set the stone wrong, so it's always falling out. So I need to get that taken care of. I was going to do that out there with someone that I know who's a Navajo silversmith, but well, can't do it now unless I go back out there, and I'm not going back out there anytime soon. So, but anyway, yeah, it was kind of interesting though when putting these on. It was like this whoosh, and I had no idea what stones they are or anything. I'm just kind of guessing and based off the research I've done and so forth. But just putting them on, it was just like whoosh. And like the dark one there, it's all healing energy. If it's the aventurine, I think that's what it's called anyway. Yeah, it's all about healing. And it's interesting, she winds up picking me up 2 of them, because the peach one, if it is the one that I'm thinking it is, based off pictures and so forth, I can't think of what it's called now. I'll have to look it up. But anyway, that's also all about healing energy as well. It's interesting. Here I am, after I was going through our talk and so forth, I'm going through all this healing work and so forth, and she winds up picking me up. She's drawn to 2 of them that helps with healing, and I gotta tell you, it was just like whoosh, and I felt like I was just being liberated or something. Hi. And and I just got real tired, and I laid down, took a nap, and I woke up. It was about a couple hours later, something like that, and I felt so much better, and I'm like, I want to go to the park. And I went to the park. Yeah, I was getting attacked by the mosquitoes. I'm going to have to get myself some citronella, and yeah, you don't chew on those. Yum, yum, yum. We don't chew on those. Those are important for mommy. So, and then having the healing energy of the water and everything, it was like, yeah. So, but then again, who knows? I might wind up in North Carolina. I loved North Carolina. I loved living there. It was beautiful. I loved the scenery and so forth, especially the mountains. But I don't know. I'm not entirely too sure. I know that I'm making these decisions and so forth with what I'm going to be doing and everything. It's like, yeah, okay. So, but it felt good for hearing her say, don't worry about it, and she's just like, don't worry about thinking about that you're being a mooch. You're not. You are contributing. You're adding laughter to the house. And if anything, something physical, you clean up the kitchen, you clean up things, and if anything, you're helping us to heal, because we had a couple people who were basically mooches, and they were a lot of drama and so forth with you. If you're not feeling, you go up to your room, you just, chill out, walk away, and so forth, when you need your time. And it's like, okay. I still feel like I'm a mooch. But I know some of that is the trauma that I went through too. So, with people not understanding things with what's going on. It's differences in priorities. And my priorities have shifted also. My priorities with living out there, the reason I moved out there was because my priorities were focused around money. And that's where the focus is a lot out there. Even though in many ways it is a giving city and so forth, at the same point, there's still a lot of focus around the self. We'll put it that way. I don't want to say the word selfishness or greed or what have you, but basically the self. I think it's a better term. With what I'm trying to describe anyway. First house sort of thing. But my priorities have shifted. Now it's more about happiness, joy, making that my priority. So, and love. Yeah. So anyway, I should go. Get myself moving, eat myself some really good breakfast, and get myself back to work. Feels good knowing the direction I'm going. Mm-hmm. So, anywho, I'll talk to you later. Love you. Love you.